Welcome back to Advus After Hours, a podcast focused on the intersection of innovation, finance, and community. Today, we are off-site joining a man that most Central Floridians know for his great barbecue here in Orlando, John Rivers. He is the CEO and founder of Four Rivers, but today we are not talking about barbecue. We are talking about his newest initiative, Four Roots. We are here on their campus right off John Young Parkway in the Packing District west of downtown Orlando, here to talk about his mission and Four Roots' mission to promote health, sustainability, and to combat food insecurity here in Central Florida.
Okay, so by the numbers, a lot of people know your story with Four Rivers. How big of a business is Four Rivers at this point? I know we talked earlier before you came in, balancing that with the farm now, and how big is the farm? Just kind of by the numbers.
We've been very blessed in Four Rivers. We're 15 years old now. We just celebrated back in October. And as of today, we have 31 branded outlets around the country.
Wow.
I think it's 16 smokehouse restaurants, and we got the next one going up in the Villages, which will open next year. But then we have outlets at colleges, at stadiums. We're working hard to get into the Orlando airport next year,
nice.
Which we're very excited about. We have 3 divisions. We have the restaurant division. We have a manufacturing division that sells our products. We produce it down in Texas in a USDA facility. Royal Caribbean, it's one of our biggest customers, Princess, a lot of stadiums, a lot of places you'll go, and they'll actually be serving Four Rivers product. It's not always branded that way, but they buy it. Wow. And then we have a retail division. And so Publix is our biggest customer, Walmart, Costco, we have products and all that. So all in all, we got about shy of 1,000 team members today. And it's growing and, fighting the fight. The restaurant business is tough. It's tougher today than it ever has been. And I'm thankful I got a great team who's managing that.
And then the other part of your whole life and why we're here today is Four Roots.
Yeah. Is today the odd day? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were
saying
saying
back
earlier.
And forth, and I'm okay when I can delineate, all right, today is a Four Rivers day and today is a Four Roots day.
Right.
It gets tricky when I have to overlap. Yeah. I wear 2 hats in one day. And Four Roots is growing. I don't know how many team members we have now. Not that many, probably 30, 30 somewhere in there. But the CHI, the Culinary Health Institute, has its own team. We've got an executive director over it. We've got a chief medical officer. We got a grants writing team. We got clinicians. We got dietitians that are doing classes and CME programs. Then we've got our foundation team. So that is all of our development, all of our grant writers. And that's a big team.
Right. And
then we got our operators, the farm team. And that is everything from facilities to design to, we got a greenhouse manager now. I got a head farmer. As we look into next year, we're going to increase the staff of farmers because we just need to. Yeah. Because there's so much that's growing. That greenhouse behind us, 1 acre, can grow over 40,000 pounds of produce a week can come out of that. And you know who our number 1 customer is?
Who's that?
Our biggest customer,
I
always say, is the manatees out at SeaWorld.
Nice.
Yeah. Isn't that fun? SeaWorld buys our all the romaine lettuce that comes out of here. Yeah, which they love because it's hydroponic, so it has all the roots in it. And those manatees that they have, they're in rehabilitation. The roots are where all the nutrients lie.
Wow.
So they're actually getting more nutrients by eating our lettuce.
That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Kind of cool.
So you guys are growing staff and volunteers by the day.
We are.
At this point.
We are, and I'm grateful. And our CSA program's got almost, I think, 2,000 members now.
Wow.
That's 2,000 houses that we deliver fresh produce to on a weekly or biweekly basis. And we support now over 59 farms, independent farms. And for a lot of these small farmers, we've become their largest purchaser.
Just to clarify, so Four Roots is a nonprofit, correct?
Four Roots is a nonprofit, but it's also a self-sustaining nonprofit. And this is an important piece. If we look at it, Four Roots Campus is a gift that Monica and I wanted to give to the community. Okay, and this wanted to, when we leave, that this is something that continues to benefit and bless the community. It's, if the gift has to ask for money every year, it's not a gift, it becomes a burden. So within the not-for-profit, we've created multiple revenue centers. And those revenue centers generate the income to pay for all the overhead. Or if we stopped building today, phase one is self-sustainable from a revenue perspective and from a growing and energy perspective. Yeah.
Cool. Obviously, you've got a phenomenal history and everyone knows the Four Rivers story. So we want to touch on that slightly, but I think today the main goal is to talk a lot about Four Roots. We're sitting here in this brand new, it's your education building, is that correct?
Yeah. This is our first installation. It's a phase one, which is education. There's three phases, education, community, and then discovery. And I chose education because if we stop at even this phase, we still have accomplished the goal of being able to teach the students and the community about where their food comes from, about that relationship between human health and planet health. And behind you right now is a 1 acre greenhouse. It's quite unique. It has 9 different growing systems in it. It's cool. There's nothing like this, at least that I know of, because most farms are what's called monoculture, which means they grow one thing and they grow it over and over and over the exact same way. Well, because this is a research and campus education facility, we wanted to show multiple styles. So there's 9 different growing systems under one roof in there. And it's all driven by, if you look in there, it's just 2 big, huge blue tanks of each one holds 200 tilapia fish. And the importance of this is we wanted to create a closed loop system. So imagine this. Rain is captured. You see these big barrels around the classrooms? Oh, they're all full.
Yep.
Rain is captured, okay? It goes into the greenhouse, into the fish tanks with the 400 tilapia. Those tilapia are omnivores. So they're actually eating all the waste and everything that comes out of the fields and from the greenhouse, all right, in the water that we collected from God. All right. They're doing their business. All right. They're making their waste. We filter down their waste. Okay. And we make fertilizer. And that fertilizer is used not just in the greenhouse, but actually the entire farm campus. So we don't have to bring any chemicals. We don't have to bring anything whatsoever. And it's all just a big circular loop.
That's amazing. That was my favorite part of when we heard about that at Gators on the Farm. It was incredible. How rare is that to have kind of a system like that in place, at least around here or around the country?
I always caution against saying, it's the only one, because it's not.
Right.
No matter what you think of, people have done it and hopefully are doing it in other places too. This is the only one that I know of that is crazy enough to have that many growing systems. And the reason that we did it, because we want to teach multiple ways of growing food. Okay. And if you take a look right now, the way that we're going as a world, as a population, okay, you got 2 factors that are working against us. One is we're running out of soil. All right. You got to have healthy soil in order to create food. Okay. And when it's soil, it's full of microorganisms. That's vital for the plants. That's what they eat, the bacteria in the plant. Right. And ironically, the bacteria in our body eats those same microorganisms, the same microorganisms that come out of the soil. So whether we eat the meat or whether we eat the plant or we eat the animal that ate the plant, those microorganisms are making their way into our body, specifically into our gut biome, and they're feeding our bacteria, which constitutes almost 90% of our body makeup. So we have to have those microorganisms that are living in that soil. The problem is right now, we're killing soil. Okay, we're over fertilizing, we're over tilling, we're over farming, we're not farming the proper way. At the moment, 52% of the Earth's healthy soil has been turned to dirt. And when it turns to dirt, you can no longer grow in it. It's dead.
Right.
So we got an issue. We're running out of food on top of a growing population that's consuming, specifically here in the Americas, a lot of meat, which eats a lot of ground, okay, and eats up a lot of carbon and eats up a lot of produce. So those are all factoring in. The World Health Organization right now, if we take projections of all of those factors, okay, and you run them out, we run out of healthy soil in 60 years.
Right.
And then in the United States, the USDA shows 50 years before we run out. And what that translates to is 50 years from now, we're not harvesting food the way that we're doing it today. We've got to do 2 things. We've got to show alternate ways to grow food, which is what the hydroponic system is all about. And we got to turn around the way that we're farming today so that we stop killing soil and try to turn that dirt back into healthy soil.
So what was the genesis of this initiative? I think it was 2015 you guys started to
2015,
think about
yeah.
this.
Monica, my wife, and I and our kids came back from a mission trip in Africa. And the honest truth is I looked at our visa bill when we came back, and I just spent an inordinate amount of money on non-mission work, flights, the hotels, the clothes. And,
Right.
and it was kind of the realization, wow, did we really put our money to the best use of what God gave it to us for? And the answer was, I didn't feel comfortable about it. So we prayed about it and we said, let's just take all of our efforts, all of our foundation efforts, and put it in our own backyard. And let's go deep instead of going wide. And we looked around. We interviewed a lot of different organizations. Education's always been really big for us, but really feeding and food and food insecurity. Just I had a period in my life where I lived through that.
Mm.
So I have empathy and appreciation for what kids go through when they're like that. So that really spoke to my heart, and it clicked when we went to Orange County Public School, and Barbara Jenkins, the superintendent, was walking us around, and she explained to me that back then it was sad. The sad part is back then it was 1 out of 6 students live in food insecurity. Today it's 1 out of 5 students. It's 20% of our kids live in food insecurity. And I asked the question, what does that mean? She said, that's 20% of our kids that this is the only food they typically eat all day long.
Right.
So what about dinner? She says, that's not always food. And I said, well, if I was thinking about it, so what about the weekends? She says, they got to find food. And the fact that that's just happening in our own backyard,
Right.
okay, that was enough. That was enough stimulus for me and enough reason to say, this is where we're going to go to work. And initially, we started handing out food. Okay, and this was a pivotal moment. A gentleman named Dave Krepko, and he used to run the food bank here. Great guy, great, just entrepreneur spirit. And he was retiring, and he said something to me because I think I asked him what he learned in his 12 years or so when he was in that position. He said, John, I learned that you can't food bank your way out of hunger. I asked him what that meant, and he said, we're handing out more food today than we ever have in our history, yet missed meals are increasing year over year over year. And it told me it's an essential part of the solution, but it is not the solution. Just handing out food is not going to change the trend that we're seeing right now. So we started, we went back and said, okay, we got to the point of realizing it's a 3-prong attack. Okay. You got to have access. Okay. If they don't have food, they're not going to think at school.
Right.
They're not going to function. That's where it all starts.
Food desert peace.
100%. Number 2, okay, it's access plus education. You got to teach them how to cook it.
Mm-hmm.
What is a broccoli? How does it differ from a tomato? What do you do with it? Because a lot of, remember our starting point is kids that don't know tomatoes come from the ground.
Right.
Let alone have actually ever had fresh produce to begin with. Okay? And it's not just the education of the cooking, it's the education of why it's important for their body and why it's important for their health. And that's what leads to the third piece, which is inspiration. If I can inspire them to want to find this food, to want to eat better, to change their habits, then you start seeing changes in the community because it comes from food and it comes from health.
Growing up, or at some point you had food insecurity in your life. So I wanted to briefly touch on just how you grew up, maybe when that point came up.
Condensed story, grew up in Jacksonville, had a broken family.
Yeah.
First year of college, my folks got a divorce. I had to drop out of college. And because with the divorce, I was the oldest of 4, all the college funds were gone. Yeah. And so moved back to Jacksonville, started painting houses.
Okay.
My best friend was going to Florida State, and I think it was August, called me up and says, get over here. I said, dude, I got $74 to my name, and finally, at this point I had the family stabilized. I'm not accepted, I haven't applied or anything. He says, look, I talked to the fraternity president. He said, you could live here. And one day I told them that you'd pay us back, and you can go to the community college
Yep.
and get your AA,
Yep.
and then you can transfer over. So my mom felt better where she was, and so I packed up my little Volkswagen with my $74, and I said, "All right, how do you get to Tallahassee?" I had never been there before, and literally, this is long before GPS. The
Yeah.
directions were get on I-10,
Let's drive that way.
head west, look for the sign that says FSU, get off on Tennessee Street, take a right, and go until you see the big lion in front of the house. That's where you go in.
There
That's
we go.
all I had.
Yeah.
But the thing was, before I could go to the fraternity house, when you're in survival mode, you think very different. And, I was going to find a job before I went to the house. I went to 3 places, applied and interviewed and applied back then. And I finally got a job at a little beer barn. And I said, okay, because when you're in the mode of, what you eat next week, you have to earn this week.
Right.
And translate that into schools, the classes you take next semester is because of how much money you save this semester working. So, it took me 6 years to get through school because I could never take a load. And I figured out when, in the fraternity house, I could eat. Okay. When I figured out if I become president, I can eat free. So I did that. The problem was summers, when the fraternity house was shut down and the kitchen was gone. I think God put that in my life, to give me an appreciation for what people go through.
Yeah.
Who are hungry. What's that old saying? Theologian Kierkegaard, 19th century. He said, we live our lives moving forward, but we tend to understand our lives looking back. And the things that happen to us along the way, they happen for a reason. And they're setting up our future self to be able to overcome whatever challenge or whatever question, whatever it is that comes our way. And the irony is, had you not gone through that hardship, you would not be able to go through that milestone today.
I think we both have similarities to that and just respect that story. And I'm sure at that time you weren't thinking that way. Maybe you were a little bit kind of dreaming of what your life could come into, but
trying to find dinner, dude.
Yeah, there you go. But now sitting here in this campus and looking back on that, it's beautiful.
Yeah. We had never pictured this. I was in healthcare. I did 20 years in healthcare. Right. I always loved to cook. Right. But I didn't know God was going to put me in the restaurant business.
Right.
And when we opened that one, it was, as a ministry. When this one started to become clear, and this is an important point. When you're developing something like this, it's not a flashpoint. Okay, here's the final answer. It's an iterative process.
Right.
You have to take one step to get to the next step, to get the revelation of, okay, what needs to be next? And so many times we try to frame the entire solution and try to have all the answers. But that's
before you even get started. And
that's the biggest mistake you can make, because each step you take, you learn something that's going to help determine, and if not reshape, the next step that you take. So the farm as we sit today was not what we designed 5 years ago. Gosh, we started this in 15.
Yep.
We drew our first plans in 19, which look completely different from where we sit in 20, what are we, 23, 24?
24, about to be 25.
Oh, Lord. 25, 24 today. We're narrowing down. We're running out of space and time. So it's good. It's honing in, but I'm so happy that it is an iterative process, because we've kept improving and we keep learning. We keep discovering other things that are out there. The irony is, by even taking this first step in opening phase 1, we start pulling in other similar minded programs and people, which we learn from, which then help reshape the next step as well.
So why don't we talk about what phase 1 looked like? Because I know we're in phase 2 now.
Getting ready to go to phase 2.
I'm
ready for phase 2.
So what did phase 1 look like? And then what are the next steps kind of with phase 2?
Phase 1 is education. So the 3 main projects. First was the land. And when we took this over, it was really, really bad shape. Unworked forestry. It was stuff that was dumped in here, stuff that was buried.
Right.
We found, washing machines and refrigerators, and there was a homeless camp, just over here. And we didn't realize it, but we we ended up moving out. I think it was 40 truckloads of muck, which is under the ground, which costs us a lot of money to do that. So that was one piece. The other two pieces are this classroom that we're sitting in and the greenhouse, which we just spoke about. Now, this classroom is unique. This is the first certified living building in the state of Florida. And it's only the second one in the Southeast. The other one's up at Georgia Tech, on Georgia Tech University. Yeah. And there's all these things that you have to meet requirements of to become a living building. Specifically this building, it's all solar on the top. It's all, you see the roof here, there's no insulation. And you wonder, how is it keeping so cool without the insulation whatsoever? This building generates 105% of the electricity that it actually needs organically. There's no electricity coming into it. It's all solar. It collects all the water that goes around. Right. Okay. It does reverse osmosis on those. It makes it potable water when you go in there. These windows are called, they're smart windows. They're Halio glass.
We were looking at the box there trying to figure out what it was.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like a Tesla box, doesn't it look like that? Yeah. You see these little chips on the windows?
Yep.
They're measuring light, wind velocity, shade, like 5 or 6 other factors, and they are automatically changing the ambiance in the room. They tint the windows on their own to maintain optimum light in here for learning. If we sit here long enough, you'll see the shades automatically go up and down, kind of like the haunted house, in Disney when you're in the elevator. The fans will go on and off, faster, slower on their own. The air conditioning goes on and off. We don't control anything in this building. It truly is a living building.
That's so cool. I had no idea walking in. I just knew it was gorgeous. And a lot of the kind of accessories seemed like they're checking all the boxes. And then
all the walls, there's not a single new nail or screw in that wall.
Wow.
And and all this wood was grown at a regenerative farm less than 500 miles away from here in Alabama.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? And actually all this cabinetry that you see around us, that's made out of the cypress that we saved from the trees outside.
So you said it uses more energy or it produces more energy than it's used.
Than it even needs.
Yeah, we store it. And we actually will use it in other parts. And every building on here will have solar, will have some different elements of this.
We're in kind of the packing district area right off John Young Parkway. So we came in off John Young, take a left, you take a U-turn and a right, and it was like coming into a completely different place.
Good. That was the intent.
Yeah.
You know how like when you drive into Disney and you gotta go through all those winding areas, and it's just decompressing. Okay. And matter of fact, the little things that I was going to say,
that was just stuck out. You go over them and you feel your truck or car move.
Yeah. You know what
that
emulates? My wife's from Texas and some of her family have cattle and they put
cattle bars.
On the ground so the cows won't get out.
Yeah.
And when you go over, it goes, and that's what I wanted. I literally told that to the architects. I said, I want to hear.
It stuck out because I was driving up to it and then I hit it. I'm like, I wonder if that's their way to say you're kind of transferring into a new location.
It is.
So it worked.
Wow.
At least
good.
Yeah.
Good. And there's so much more that's being built out. But now we start going into phase 2, which is the community phase. So all the assets that we're building in phase 2 welcome the community onto the campus. Right now, it's scheduled. So it's students, Valencia College moved their ag program here. We've got activations and programs in here every day from different grade schools, high schools. The next phase is for people just to walk in. Okay, so we're building a beautiful farm stand that'll have a coffee shop in it and flowers and all the fruits and vegetables, kind of like you find it in California. I built it after a place we found called Oxbow Market in Napa, which I absolutely love it. And then it's going to have an event center that sits 300 people for weddings and events and graduations and things like that. And then a true farm to table restaurant that Michael is the chef for. And
love it.
He's put that together. And then back over here, there's it's called a cooking cottage. And Chef Norman Van Aken is taking that over and he'll be doing cooking classes.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And and then the big, beautiful pavilion is going up right here. So we have outside speakers and shows and then all of this behind me here is an open green so that we have farmers markets and field festival days and food festivals and put big tents and stuff out there for weddings and events and stuff like
That's
that.
getting me excited thinking about that and all these different how do you think that all going to roll out over the next few years?
We hope to break ground in first quarter of next year. Designs are done. We're getting ready to go to architectural drawings, then permitting. Probably if we get permitting submitted in January, we should be able to break ground at the beginning of Q2, probably.
Yeah.
And then you figure about 18 months or so on construction.
Awesome.
The site's done, which is nice. That's a lot of the work. Now we just got to go vertical on it.
It's going to be such a great way to draw people into the education piece, which I know is kind of the emphasis. And also, I'm just thinking, I mean, who's not going to want to spend their weekend doing that? Because Orlando is such a family-oriented place and such food focused now. It's going to be, I mean, it's going to be packed all the time.
I hope so. Yeah, they gave us some estimates of the number of visitors per year, and it kind of staggered us.
Yeah, what was that? We heard that at one of your events, but
it's like 300,000 people a year.
Yeah.
So we're working on additional parking at the moment.
Well, with how unique it is, I can very much see when tourists come and they want to look for things to do outside of the attractions, Four Roots Farm and campus will come up on the Visit Orlando site, perhaps.
Yeah.
Kind of like Park Ave has to a degree. You go down to Park Ave on a Saturday and it's a lot of tourists and visitors.
Oh, yeah.
Different languages being spoken.
Yeah, and I can see that absolutely being a way to draw some folks in from out of town, and hopefully, to your point, inspire them to do things in their own community, because you can only start.
That's right.
Start in one place, and usually home base is a good spot.
I hate to think of it that we're tricking them, but I want them to come for the restaurants and the coffee and everything else. But while they're here, I really want them to be inspired about eating, changing their eating habits or changing their growing habits that they're buying, or just having a general appreciation for that relationship that's kind of getting broken right now.
You all already have a pop-up spot in the Orlando Science Center, right?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I was taking my son and I was like, we need to get something to eat.
Did you go? Did you eat?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, great. Thanks. Thanks. They called me years ago. They had a Subway down there that had been there for a long, long time. And they decided to make a change from it. They actually wanted me to put a smokehouse down there or a coop. And we said, no, it's really not the right place for it. But the more you start to speak to their team, and Joanne Newman is just a rock star, you start to realize they're doing the Science Center out of passion. They want to educate, they want to make an impact. And I told the team, we got to find a way to support them. And so I remember the day we went to them and we said, okay, here's the deal. We'll take over the restaurant space and we'll create a Four Roots Cafe, because it didn't exist before then. But you have to work with us and give us the whole dining room and let us turn it into an exhibit around food. And they thankfully loved the idea. I think they really just wanted a restaurant in there. They loved the idea. And they worked with us. And Orlando Health was one of our partners there. And we built that out. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to do a refresh on it now.
Cool. It's pretty cool because you're walking. I mean, my favorite part of the Orlando Science Center is where the little gators are, kind of the Florida area. So from what I remember, you're walking through there and then you go through the hallway and there's like hydroponics on the wall. And then you go into Four Roots. So it's actually a really nice flow. It frames your mind for what you're about to see in the cafe. So
they're great partners.
That kind of partnership makes so much sense too. I think that was a great idea because it's, essentially very similar.
Well, that's been part of the strategy of Four Roots.
Right.
It's a model of partnerships. We've never wanted to threaten or replace an existing entity that was doing good. So we've purposely come in and not be the experts at this or say we're going to be it's partnering education programs with OCPS and with the Science Center and other people, and learning from Epcot on the land, and Fred and those guys teaching us about hydroponics and stuff, and on and on and on. So they're one of our first tangible partnerships that we're able to say, okay, we can use the limited expertise that we have, add it to your massive expertise, and we can do something new and exciting.
Oh, I think that's such a cool common thread that, we're just looking at not only your board, but looking at all your partnerships. And it's a lot of that's a great thing that we love about Orlando too, is I feel like that's a common theme of people trying to help each other build these partnerships for everyone's benefit and for the city's benefit. And
Oh, just the Culinary Health Institute, one of our main assets that's going up next year as well,
Yeah.
is a facility to actually do and conduct study around the use of food as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see patients, we'll have a lifestyle medicine practice. At the same time, we're running clinical trials. At the same time, we're building a phytonutrient lab to do analysis on that. And we did that not on our own, but via bringing together three of the luminaries in this space: Advent Health,
Yeah.
the largest healthcare provider in the state; Florida Blue, one of the largest insurers in the state; and a wonderful organization called Gordon Food Service, one of the largest wholesalers in the country.
Yeah.
And it's that spirit of collaboration between the three organizations and us that truly creates something that's unique and prayerfully impactful.
I think at the fundraiser we went to as well, I mean, talking about the land aspect as well, Dr. Phillips, and
Yeah,
I mean, that's huge, unbelievable.
that was
gift, right?
yeah, that was a surprise blessing. We used to do these. We had one this morning, community breakfasts, and back in the day, it was just an idea that I had, and we used to do them at the Coop, and you really had to beg friends to come and buy them breakfast and do the whole bit and just talk about something they didn't really see, and that was food insecurity, in our own community. And unbeknownst to me, at one of those breakfasts were board members of Dr. Phillips, and they were in the midst of buying all of this property around here, which is the packing district. And they saw the presentation and they saw the potential alignment and fit of the farm campus within their overall vision of what they wanted to create here. And they called right afterward and offered us a property. And we couldn't have been more fortunate about it, because where we're located, we're only 2 miles from downtown.
Right.
Where College Park is, one way that way, Pine Hills is that way, and just, a rock stone away. And what that means, if you think about it, if we were out in Lake County,
Right.
which is a beautiful area, for those inner city kids and families that we're trying to educate, it's a field trip.
Right.
But because we're here, we can actually integrate into their studies and their programs and have them out here over and over and over again. And that's exactly what it's translated to.
It's interesting how many stakeholders, as I'm kind of processing this, how many stakeholders there are. There's the students who have, or the individuals who have food insecurity. There are the local farms who want to sell their produce.
Yes.
You talked about Florida Blue. Well, if you're creating a healthcare system where we're not pushing medication and expensive treatments, and we're just emphasizing good diet, and then the healthcare system, how much does that save?
Oh, tremendous.
In resources, both time and money, to treat people the right way. It's an interesting approach, and it's hard to see how it's not a success given the amount of stakeholders that benefit from this and will likely want to help and give back.
Well, the expertise of those stakeholders is what drives a lot of the success of it. We did our first clinical trial with Advent 2-3 years ago. We took 100 patients and we put them on what's called medical tailored meals. So the patients were diabetes and cardiovascular. And for a regimen of 30, 60, and 90 days, we actually provided the food post-discharge when they left the hospital, and we controlled those diets. And at the end of it, those patients who stayed on the diet, so the meals that we provided to them, we demonstrated a 64% reduction in readmission rates. And the financial implication of that on a large scale is tremendous savings to the healthcare system. So, the caution is it was 100 patients.
Small sample size.
Yeah, it's a very small sample, but it was a very encouraging start.
What was I'm trying to think of the stat. How many? It was 1,700 miles that food or travels before it gets to your plate.
Yeah, there's some really devastating stats that aren't positive or for the United States. Our average produce here in the country travels 1,782 miles to get to our plate, which is just, when you live in Florida, there's so much abundance of produce here. And we have just turned, it's such a broken food system. We're sending food out, the same food that we're bringing in,
Right.
Conversely. And for the first time, sadly, as a country, we have become a bigger net importer than exporter. That's not good. Translated, 52% of our produce is now brought in from other countries.
Yeah.
And what that causes is what we're seeing today is that average mile has gone up, but also too the loss of our local farmers. These small family-owned local farms can't compete against these big guys, and we lose on average in the United States. I think it's 233 farms close every week in the United States for the first time. Now, at one point,
Every week.
every week. At one point, we had 7 million farms in the United States, independent, separate entity farms. Okay. We're now down to the lowest point since the Civil War of 1.89 million farms. That's how many we've lost.
I was trying to remember another statistic you had said at the
The
breakfast.
food waste.
Yeah.
Food waste.
Oh,
That was
food
the one
waste.
that
So many
stuck out.
statistics.
That's
Yeah.
the one that makes me crazy. When you take a look at all these kids that are hungry, that the 20% of the kids aren't eating, and we're bringing food in from all over the countries and things like that. On average, in the state of Florida, on an annual basis, we have produce that goes to waste in the fields. Okay, it's almost 1 billion pounds. It's 800 million pounds of produce goes to waste annually, every single year. That's more produce than can feed all of our kids and all of our public school systems, not just the hungry ones, but everybody.
Right.
And it's just such an enormous waste in our system
Mhm.
that it just comes from over excess, and just technology is so easy. I can push a button, I can send it to a different country, I can bring it in. Just a lot of inefficiencies.
A lot of those stats show how just truly unsustainable it is, and the true definition of the word of all this. And a lot of these different aspects of things like to get politicized, but it's just a lot of problems that need to be solved. And it's cool to see how you're kind of framing out here, how they all work together with healthcare and food and a healthy life, and bringing it all together and making that picture clear to everyone.
What people don't understand yet or realize is the national security risk we're putting ourselves into. If we cannot control and produce the very food that we need for our health, okay, then we can't survive as a country. We make ourselves susceptible to the will of people who are. And if we keep going at the rate that we're doing right now of depending on other countries for our food, for our vitamins, for our nutrients, then we're going to be in big trouble when they turn their backs on us.
I mean, we got a taste of it a year and a half ago.
That's right.
With the crisis in Ukraine.
100%.
And commodities
100%.
prices and the price of grain and energy prices.
Yeah.
So I think that opened a lot of people's eyes up, as well as COVID too. I mean, COVID was I'd imagine an eye opener for most people, and our reliance on foreign countries to provide for us.
And that, especially on the food desert and insecurity part.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yep. Imagine if we shut off trade with China.
Yeah.
Imagine if we continue to constrict the trade with the old USSR. Okay. It's fuel, it's nitrogen, it's fertilizer. China, it's a lot of things. And people are going to ask, where do I get this stuff from? And because we don't make it anymore.
Or what have the iterations been already? And what do you kind of anticipate, going back to the drawing board on as we go through these next couple of phases?
I made the comment to my team a while ago. You think of where we are today versus 5 years ago, and the little thoughts that we had back then. And I said, think of where we'll be 5 years from now. We'll be prayerfully doing things that aren't even on our radar. And if this is successful, which I very much hope it will be, then I don't think this will be the only 4 routes in the country.
And for anyone listening who wants to get involved, 'cause I do think, given that there's one mission, but there's a couple different ways to get there, someone will find what you're doing impactful. Yes. How can people help? How can people get involved? What are some ways the community can give back to you?
The best input place is our website, 4rootsfarm.org. There's volunteer opportunities. We're still doing 6 to 7 feeding programs a week right now. We've handed out over 2.3 million meals.
Good to know. Yeah.
We have produce that comes in that needs to be sorted. We go out and we hand it out every single day in our mobile market. We have farmers in fields that we go and we help harvest, which is actually really cool to do. Bring your kids who've never been on a farm, and we'll bring them out there and we help those farmers from here on property. You see people walking around. There's people here today I don't know, and they just want to come and work on a farm.
That's cool.
And they just want to help clean, and they want to be a part of it. To joining our CSA, if you want that fresh produce delivered to your house, then we can do that. We got a compost program where we pick up your food waste. We always are looking for donors, and we're getting ready to roll out a membership program next year that I'm very excited about, because people want to get involved. And so, $10 a month All right. So we put together something for them so they can do that up to, naming a $5 million building.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just give people one way or another to stay connected.
So something we always ask as well is, what's your why? Steal that from Simon Sinek. We always talk about that. I think you've uncovered a lot of that. I think it's pretty evident. What I want to ask is, how did you find your why and kind of, put all of those pieces together? 'Cause I think people struggle with that aspect of it as well. It's just finding their why.
It's what makes you passionate. What is so moving to you that you would change your life, change your occupation, devote the time to it. That's your passion.
Yeah.
And some people, it's their family. Some people, it's school. Some people, God forbid, it's work.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it has to be your why, your passion. It can't be somebody else's, and nobody can tell you what yours should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's in your heart, and you have to follow that piece of it. And what I have learned at this point in life too, it's not just one why.
Yeah.
It's not one passion, but they are connected.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go in healthcare those 20 years to learn how to build a business, to learn how to run a multi-billion-dollar organization, to learn strategy.
Yep.
In order to go into a restaurant business, to build that, have the funds and the wherewithal and the brand recognition to do the farm. And that's why I keep saying, you keep thinking each one's at end destination,
Mm-hmm.
but then you start to realize each one's just a step.
Right.
And you kind of get excited. Okay, what's that next step going to be?
We are very much excited for the next step and appreciate all you've done for our community. And we are very much excited to take part in both the education and the community aspects of
Thank you, guys.
the Four Roots campus. And thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks
Yeah,
for all your
appreciate
support.
it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here with you guys today.